North Adams Mayor Thomas Bernard wants to breathe new life into the city-owned Mohawk Theater. The former movie house opened in 1938, but has sat mostly unused for more than 25 years, despite repeated efforts to get the downtown space up and running. Now, the current 1st Berkshire District State Representative John Barrett, who was the city's mayor from 1985 to 2009, and Bernard disagree on how best to tackle the project moving forward. Carrie Saldo spoke with them, both in studio, about it.
It was part of a larger set of conversations in the state of the city about where we are in North Adams and the moment that we're at. We're seeing, a real interest in the city from entrepreneurs. We're seeing interest in the revival and the reinvigoration of our manufacturing sector. We've got good partners coming to the table, and it seemed like this was a moment to see what we could do with the theater. There have been different plans over 20 years around the space, all of them premised on the fact that the city has been holding it in trust, has been doing an active stewardship that began when the city took it over under the Reps administration, and now there's a possibility to see what ideas might be out there. I think the thing that we agree on wholeheartedly is that the Mohawk can be a catalyst for downtown revitalization.
Lots of threads in that statement that we'll tease out over the next few minutes. So now State Representative Barrett, former Mayor Barrett, when the city did decide to purchase the Mohawk and take it under its ownership, what was your thinking at the time then?
Well, basically to save the building. It was an important part of our history. We just got done doing basically the same thing with the old Sprague plant when we brought Mass MoCA in. I saw this as another opportunity to save this building, knowing full well we wouldn't know what we were going to do with it for years. But I think the important factor, too, is that we realized that retail was leaving our downtown. We had to change in a way so that we could actually create a neighborhood. I've spoken all over the country about the importance of downtowns, and the only way you're going to have a successful downtown is you have to have a strong housing component. And who are the people that were going to live in the downtown? And as I said in one of the studies that we had done regarding the Mohawk, that with the coming of Mass MoCA, we were going to be attracting new and different people to our city. They wanted to have the culture, they wanted to have arts, they wanted to have the restaurants, they wanted to have the small improv theaters. All those things were coming together as a plan and a vision more than anything else, including in the Eagle Street area. When we
and for those who don't know, Eagle Street sort of runs into Main Street, which is where the Mohawk is situated.
Yeah, it's a quirky little street. Probably you won't find one like it any place in New England. But we were looking upon acquiring some of the property around it, which we did do, so that there would be a back entrance to it. It was well thought out and well planned. And I think what people have to realize too, and the new thinking that's basically out there, Mass MoCA took us basically 14 years from beginning to end. What we planned originally wasn't what we ended up or what we have today after we've opened its doors. So change was coming. I also look to the fact now that I don't think this is the time to be selling the Mohawk Theater. It should be kept for its original purpose. Right now, the downtown is not filled. It once was 10 years ago, it was 70% filled. It's now 70% empty. We have to look beyond the future, and we also have to look that we bring the old with the new.
So the city right now is considering putting out a request for proposals. Would the city actually hold onto ownership of the space of the Mohawk, or would the RFP open it up to someone purchasing that space?
Well, that's one of the ideas, is to see is there a viable idea for private development that could pick up the ball and do a theater development, could do something, even something that we haven't considered that would be off the wall. But still in keeping with that core vision of this is a place that can be an anchor for downtown. And I don't have a particular vision for what it should be, or I don't want to say a predetermination of what kind of project. I'd like to see, are there possibilities? And the answer may come back that no, there's nothing viable, there's nothing supportable.
So since you made this mention in your State of the City, has anyone reached out to you and said, I have some sense of what I might do with the space? Has there been any interest?
I've gotten a couple calls of people saying, interested in talking, and so the message is, let's get this one procedural step, and then let the RFP go out and have them go through the process and see what might be out there.
But in terms of holding the property or selling the property, do you have an opinion?
I think if there's somebody who's got a project that works and is willing to purchase it, I would support that. Again, we have done a lot of investment and stewardship of, state, federal grant funds, local funds, and some of the things that we've done to stabilize, we were going to have to look in the next couple of years at the possibility of a reinvigoration in more stabilization. And if there's somebody who wants to do that work and not put it on the city, that's a benefit as well.
Why do you see it as a bad thing to sell the space?
Well, 9 years ago when I left office, we had put over $3.5 million into it. We had a clear plan. We had done a study. In fact, we did a couple of studies indicating the best way that we could use this. And it was very compelling. Most importantly, too, the community was involved in it. The city council was involved in it. Gail Caridi was an active person in putting it all together. Mike Boland, people like this from the city that were planning the future of how we wanted to save this iconic building and make sure that we could preserve it for future use, not as a movie theater, but possibly for other venues, such as teleconferencing and having conferences. One of the things that Joe Thompson at Mass MoCA said he wanted was to have a conference center in the downtown area. What better spot for it than that? We went to places like the Calvin in Northampton. We went down and saw what they were doing at the Mahawi in Great Barrington. We looked at what they were doing at the Colonial. And the best part of this is that what we were doing it piecemeal. The saddest thing, and when the mayor says today that, geez, we're going to have to do more work on it. Well, you want to know why? Because it sat there for the last 9 years, nothing happened. My last month in office, they completed the last phase of it for $1 million. There's $3.5 million in taxpayers' money in this project, as well as other contributions that we received. I went to the mayor a month ago and said to him and talked about some things that we're trying to do with the legislature and everything. And one thing that I brought up to him, I said, you've got to do something with the Mohawk.
And to be clear, Dick Alcombright was mayor in between the two of you, and you're saying that not much was done on the Mohawk at that time.
Nothing was done, basically.
Structurally, what's the status of the building?
It's stable, but again, it's been sitting there. And I would talk to the building inspector, and he'd say, in a couple of years we're going to have to look at additional investment. And again, it's to continue the stabilization. Since the studies that were done 20 years ago, there have been others, and one of the things that is a moving target is the renovation costs. So even the studies done in 1997, 1998 started at $1 million. There was a $7 million option. There was a $2 million plan that was announced, and then we kind of fast forward to some projects that I was involved in before I became mayor, when I was working at Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts, and there were projects in the range of studies that started at 10 million and got to 30 million really quickly, to plans similar to what the rep is talking about, that by that time we're up to sort of $7 or $8 million. So the cost of doing this continues to both flux and to change depending on which model you go for. So something like the idea that we're talking about carrying through is probably even now in the $7-8 million range, and that's just renovation. That doesn't get to the operating piece, and it doesn't get to the fact that, as much as it would be great to have another performance, multi-use conference film venue, we also have other cultural facilities within our area. So it's the difference between that compelling need to revitalize downtown and what we can do to do it sustainably.
I just want to, before you jump in, I want to circle back real quick to the Dick Alcombright piece of this, because I hear you saying that there wasn't much done during that decade or so, a little less that he was in office, but people could look at it and say that nothing got done during your 20 plus years as mayor either, in terms of opening to the public.
That's not true. In other words, we can also say that nothing was done for 14 years with Mass MoCA either.
So
Nothing
you're saying
happened.
lots of stuff behind the scenes.
Absolutely, because the tangible things that weren't happening out there, like I say, we replaced the facade, we replaced the whole marquee, not replaced it, but spent over, renovated it, $150,000, a beautiful marquee, so it was an attraction in the downtown. People were contributing, they were paying for use of the marquee, everything was going on. Most importantly, that the plan that was there, no reference is made to it. We were left when I left office, there was $2.2 million in historical tax credits, both federal and state, ready to be awarded. All the city had to do was to raise about $2.5 million for $5 million further for the next phase to be invested in it. Nobody did it. Nobody talked to me about it. Nobody talked to the people in the community development office, and that's why nothing happened. And I'm just saying that a vision was created by the community. What the mayor really wants to do is just get rid of it and say, oh, let it be done. This is important to the future of the city of North Adams, especially in the downtown area. I'm not opposing him. I'm opposing the idea that has come forth now. I think it's sad. I've seen 3 others happen in 10 years in the last city of North Adams. I've watched them, outsiders that have come in with promises. They promised that they would fix over the, back 6-7 years ago, the Heritage State Park. You go in there and look at it today, it's destroyed and almost empty. That's not work that I think that we should bring to the downtown of our city, and the city should control their destiny.
For you, what are the next steps in this process?
So the next steps are, the first one is procedural. It's going to the city council to get the, effectively, this is rough language, but it's surplus declaration to enable me to put out an RFP, and then it would be to
A request for
proposal, and then it would be evaluating those and seeing again what ideas are out there. And I think one of the things that does is it really does create a space for conversation, because the people who have ideas can bring them forward, and as long as they're viable and they have a sense of how they would pay for it and capitalize it, they'd have a chance for a fair hearing. And the building's assessed at about $450,000, give or take. Anything that was a proposal that I would consider supporting that comes under that amount would need to be approved by the city council. And so there's a check there on the project. So it's not not necessarily a unilateral decision.